Welcome to the JTV News Caribbean News segment. I'm Ino Soman. British Prime Minister David Cameron has announced a £360 million development package for the Caribbean, which will provide grants for infrastructure projects. Speaking to the joint Houses of Parliament in Jamaica on September 29th, the UK Prime Minister announced a package of bilateral aid for development of roads, bridges and ports to help drive economic growth and development across the region. Cameron said the new fund will reinvigorate the relationship between the UK and the Caribbean countries and make the UK one of the largest bilateral donors to the region. The infrastructure fund will be available to 8 Commonwealth countries in the Caribbean: Jamaica, Guyana, Belize, Dominica, Grenada, Saint Lucia, Antigua and Barbuda, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as Montserrat and ODA-eligible overseas territory. An agreement was also reached to build a new correctional facility in Jamaica. Under the agreement signed by the UK and Jamaica, by 2020, hundreds of Jamaican prisoners serving time in British jails will be sent back to Jamaica to serve their sentence. Cayman Islands is reporting an outbreak of hand, foot and mouth disease at one of the territory's schools, following similar reports at several schools across Jamaica. According to Caribbean360.com, a total of 19 students were diagnosed at one primary school in Cayman Brac. On Thursday, October 1st, the Public Health Department recommended that the entire school compound be sanitized. As a result, classes have been suspended until next week. Earlier this week, several cases of hand, foot and mouth disease were reported at schools in neighboring Jamaica, with over 50 schools affected by the outbreak. Jamaica's Health Minister, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, said cases have been reported in the parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Thomas, St. Catherine, Portland, and St. Anne. Hand, foot and mouth disease is a viral illness common in infants and children. Symptoms include fevers and blister-like eruptions on the tongue, inside the cheek, poor appetite, and sore throat. There is no vaccine to protect against the viruses that cause the disease. The United Nations is seeking ways of permanently resolving the border controversy between the South American nations of Guyana and Venezuela. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and President of Guyana David Granger met face-to-face over the weekend on the sidelines of the 70th UN General Assembly. They have agreed to restore diplomatic relations, returning their ambassadors to their posts. The UN chief Ban Ki-moon requested that the two presidents shake hands as they appeared before the media, but it was clear that despite the show of good faith, tensions remain.
The matter was resolved. It was settled finally in 1899. The Venezuelans were unable to provide any evidence that the 1899 award was void, that it was null. And we, on our side, on the Guyana side, we felt that the controversy was essentially a legal one, and we asked for a legal solution. So the Venezuelan really had no case.
A special technical committee has been established by the United Nations to try to find a solution to the South American neighbors' long-standing border dispute. Tensions between Guyana and Venezuela have soared in recent months ever since American oil company ExxonMobil discovered a huge deposit offshore Guyana's Essequibo, the mineral and forest-rich region that Venezuela claims. The Dennery South community in Saint Lucia has embarked upon an initiative to dispose and recycle the troublesome Sargassum seaweed from that country's coastline. The council's chairman, Jerome Gideon, said they used a backhoe and excavator to bury the seaweed in holes along the beach, and farmers are collecting truckloads of the seaweed to use as fertilizer. Gideon said, however, that the community and potential partners that the council has tried to engage have been slow to show their support with the activity to rid the beach of the Sargassum. The council intends to continue cleaning the beach on a weekly basis. Meanwhile, beachgoers in the Cayman Islands is forced to cope with the seaweed as the island's entire shoreline along the west coast is covered in Sargassum seaweed over a 7-mile beach. A slow-moving Hurricane Joaquin continued to slam the Bahamas on Friday, trapping dozens of residents in their homes and causing excessive power outages. The Associated Press said the storm ripped off tree branches and sent widespread flooding throughout some areas, with reports that water reached the windows of homes on Long Island and submerged the airport runway at Ragged Island. The Category 4 storm dumped torrential rains across the eastern and central Bahamas on Friday. The Hurricane Center said parts of the Bahamas could see storm surge raising sea levels 6 to 12 feet above normal, with 12 to 18 inches of rain falling in the central Bahamas. Officials asked Bahamians to stay on alert as the slow-moving storm roared through the island chain, where schools, businesses, and government offices remain closed. Authorities in the nearby Turks and Caicos Islands closed all airports, schools, and government offices. For the JTV News Caribbean News segment, I'm Ino Soman.
And coming up next on JTV News, various species of fish wash ashore as another seaweed invasion affects residents and marine life in Virgin Gorda. And Cleon Penn steps closer to the NBA after being called to train with the Minnesota Timberwolves.